All right, happy Monday, everyone. So we've been covering the budget reconciliation bill, the budget proposal, Trump's one big beautiful bill that is being worked on in the House for a while now, and it just passed another committee. So it's one step closer to being brought up to the floor for an official vote. And some of the further right-leaning, further conservative holdouts have they've secured some changes, and spoiler alert, the bill has not gotten better. I will tell you that. So the holdouts were like, hey, they didn't have a problem with cutting Medicare or Medicaid or anything like that. They were like, you're actually not cutting them enough, and that was their problem. So we're going to talk about some of the changes here and and just how the bill stands as is, and we're also going to get into how much it's going to cost. That's the fun part. So we're going to read this article from AP. It is Trump's big bill advances in rare weekend vote as conservative holdouts secure changes. Now, before we get into this article, I just always had to preface that, there's always money. As much as they talk about spending cuts and trying to pay down the debt and trying to get the deficit under control, as much as Republicans will parade and just stamp around and grandstand about that issue, they do not care. And now let me tell you why they don't care. They don't care because while they are cutting in the upwards of trillions from non-defense spending, so programs like obviously Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and then you obviously have SNAP. You have some other like just random agencies like the National Weather Service. So all these are things that are subject to cuts. But the defense spending, the military budget, the defense budget is getting over $100 billion increase. And border security and ICE is getting another like $40 billion increase. There's always more money for war, mass deportations, and securing the border. Even though per Trump himself, border crossings are at an all-time low, and they've been very successful on seizing fentanyl. And as for the military, we are the number one military in the world by far. So there's always money for defense, but when it comes to programs that actually help people, it's no, we got to cut them. There's waste, fraud, and abuse. Just ignoring the obvious waste, fraud, and abuse at the Pentagon. They've failed how many audits now? Like 15, and they can't account for half their money. So of course, spoiler alert: this bill lacks improvements for healthcare in our country. There's nothing to make it free and affordable and apply to everyone. Because healthcare is a human right. There's nothing to make higher education more affordable. There is, like every other country, same with healthcare, we should just have free higher public education, but that's communism according to most people in the US, and of course nothing to increase the minimum wage to a livable wage, and nothing to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure. But always money for the military and the border. I need you to get that through your head, because it's just crazy to me, because they say government spending's out of control, and then they only target these kind of programs while simultaneously increasing military defense. So it just blows my mind, because we went over, of course, Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP, and then effective cuts that Trump has done through executive order essentially is like the Social Security things. They've closed down over half of their offices, I believe, cut a bunch of their staff. Then the National Weather Service cut funding and staff for that, so they're launching less weather balloons, and it's actually believed that a lot of the tornadoes that went through St. Louis and that surrounding area, we could have known about them earlier had the National Weather Service been sufficiently staffed. And then, of course, FEMA's being cut, and he completely kneecapped the NLRB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, essentially cut. USAID, essentially cut. And with the U.S. aid cuts, that, of course, that went to other countries as the way we projected soft power around the world. But it also helped us domestically in the fact that we normally build up these nations and help them to prevent disease and a lot of the bad things that happen over there from spreading to the U.S. We help build up their economies so that we can later trade with them. And domestically, that food comes from our farmers, in which the government helps subsidize for these, sorts of USA programs. And that's just all gone. And now we have reports coming out of tons and tons of food just sitting in warehouses rotting. I know. Okay, it's been 5 minutes. I've rambled too much. I just need to make it clear to you. They don't care about you. They don't care about the deficit. They just care about lining their own pockets, the pockets of their billionaire friends, and the like. So, Republicans advanced their massive tax cut and border security package out of a key House committee during a rare Sunday night vote as deficit hawks who blocked the measure 2 days earlier reversed course after gaining commitments on the package's spending cuts. Speaker Mike Johnson met with Republican lawmakers shortly before the meeting, telling reporters that the changes agreed to were just some minor modifications, not a huge thing. Democrats on the panel pressed for more details about the changes that Republicans had agreed to in private negotiations, but Rep. Jody Arrington, the chairman of the House Budget Committee, said he could not do so. Deliberations continue at the very moment, Arrington said. They will continue on into the week, and I suspect right up until the time we put this big, beautiful bill on the floor of the House. The first time Republicans tried advancing the bill out of the House Budget Committee, deficit hawks joined Democratic lawmakers in voting against reporting the measure to the full House. 5 Republicans voted no, 1 on procedural grounds, the other 4 voicing concerns about the bill's impact on federal budget and deficits. And believe me, they only care that we're not cutting enough from these non-defense programs that we talked about. They have no words to be said about the increases to the military budget or border security, or hell, even the actual tax cuts, which are costing the most. On Sunday evening, the 4 voicing concerns about the bill's impact on the deficit voted present, and the measure passed by a vote of 17 to 16. Johnson is looking to put the bill in the House floor before the end of next week. This is the vehicle through which we will deliver on the mandate that the American people gave us in the last election, he said on Fox News Sunday. Republicans who criticized the measure noted that the bill's new spending and the tax cuts are front-loaded in the bill, while the measures to offset the costs are backloaded. For example, they are looking to speed up the new work requirements that Republicans want to enact for able-bodied participants in Medicaid. Those requirements would not kick in until 2029 under the current bill. It's insane that we are talking about cutting people off from health care because they're not working. Screw whatever the reason they're not working for. They just assume that they're all sitting on their couch and playing video games, as Mike Johnson has said in the past. But this should not be a conversation. The conversation should be expanding healthcare so that every single U.S. citizen is covered and has free healthcare at the point of service. That's what we should be talking about here. This is what the rest of the modern world does. They don't pay thousands of dollars for an ambulance. They don't go into debt trying to, when they have to get some major surgery they had no control over. The number one cause of bankruptcy in the U.S. is medical debt. And this is where we're at. And they say we can't afford it, but never a word when it comes to increasing the military budget. And if you want waste, fraud, and abuse, it's right there. They can't look at their audits. Look at their audits. We are writing checks we cannot cash, and our children are going to pay the price. Yeah, all right, Rep. Chip Roy, you don't fucking care. Here's a bunch of grandstanding. Member of the committee, something needs to change, or you're not going to get my support. Johnson said the start date for the work requirements was designed to give states time to retool their systems and to make sure all the new laws and all the new safeguards that we're replacing can actually be enforced. Roy was joined in voting no by Reps. Ralph Norman of South Carolina, Josh Brechin of Oklahoma, Representative Andrew Clyde of Georgia, Representative Lloyd Smucker of Pennsylvania. Switched his vote to no in a procedure step so it could be reconsidered later, saying that after the hearing he was confident Republicans would get this done. Johnson said talks to deal with their concerns were continuing Sunday. Remarkably, the vote against advancing bill came after President Donald Trump had called on Republicans in social media posts to unite behind it. We don't need grandstanders in the Republican Party. Stop talking and get it done. At its core, the sprawling package permanently extends the existing income tax cuts that were approved during Trump's first term in 2017 and adds temporary new ones, which the president campaigned on in 2024, including no taxes on tips, overtime pay, and auto loan interest payments. The measure also proposes big spending increases for border security and defense, as we talked about. And of course, the no taxes on tips and overtime pay, that is all temporary. That is meant to expire, I believe, in like 2028 and 2029, of course. Let's see. The Democrats are overwhelmingly opposed to the measure, which Republicans have labeled the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Okay, I don't really care about Democrats right now. Like, I can't be bothered. So Johnson is not having to address the concerns of the deficit hawks in his conference. He's also facing pressure from centrists who will be warily eyeing the proposed changes to Medicaid, food assistance programs, and a rolling back of clean energy tax credits. Republican lawmakers from New York and elsewhere are also demanding a much larger state and local tax deduction. As it stands, the bill proposes tripling what's currently a $10,000 cap on the state and local tax deduction, increasing it to $30,000 for joint filers with incomes up to $400,000 a year. Rep. Nick Lodota, one of New York's lawmakers leading the effort to lift the cap, said they have proposed a deduction of $62,000 for single filers and $124,000 for joint filers. If the bill passes the House this week, it would move to the Senate, where Republican lawmakers are also eyeing changes that would make the final passage in the House more difficult. Johnson said the package that we send over there will be one that was carefully negotiated and delicately balanced, and we hope that they don't make many modifications to it because they will ensure its passage quickly. Yeah, they're in a tight spot because not only is there so much push back and forth in the Republican Party from people who don't want to cut too much to specific programs like Medicare and Medicaid, and people like Chip Roy who want to gut even further. And so you have to balance that. And you're also getting there's been this back and forth between the Senate and the House. The Senate, like overall, like at least there's a few notable holdouts that are going to be like, yeah, we're not a huge fan of what the House is doing here. And I mean, shit, yeah, they got their work cut out for them. It's almost like you should be taking a different approach, but hey, whatever. Now let's talk about how much would this cost, and this is from Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. House reconciliation bill would massively increase near-term deficits. The House is continuing to mark up its reconciliation legislation, which we estimate would add $3.3 trillion to the debt, including interest, or $5.2 trillion if its temporary provisions are made permanent, in part because new borrowing is front-loaded and offsets are back-loaded. The bill would add massively to near-term deficits. We estimate the House bill would boost the FY 2027 deficit. The deficit in the first year the policies would be fully in effect by nearly $600 billion, or 1.8% of gross domestic product, GDP. That's the net effect of roughly $770 billion of new borrowing and $180 billion of offsets. The deficit boost represents a one-third increase in total projected deficits from 1.7 to 2.3 trillion, and a near doubling of the primary non-interest deficit. And here's a chart here. The legislation, spending, and tax cuts are quite front-loaded, which offsets are back-loaded. We estimate about 55% of the gross deficit increases. Now, there is talks, I think this was 15th, of where that loading is exactly going to be. Like I said, there's so much changes. This is all subject to change. But either way, unless they do a 180, it's going to lead to something similar to what is being predicted here. So 2.8 trillion would take place in the first half of the budget window. Meanwhile, only 40% of the offsets, 970 billion, would accumulate over that period. As a result, 70% of the non-interest borrowing would occur in the first 5 years. The tax cut and spending increase provisions are front-loaded in large part due to the use of arbitrary expirations designed to limit reported costs. A number of provisions, including the enhanced child tax credit and standard deduction, no tax on tips and overtime, 100% bonus depreciation for equipment, and new MAGA accounts are scheduled to expire in 2028 or 2029. The bill also relies on one-time appropriations for defense and immigration, which must be obligated by 2029. And finally, the bill includes a large number of retroactive provisions that provide a one-time windfall for activities already undertaken. Meanwhile, many of the offsets don't begin or ramp up until late in the budget window. Medicaid work requirements, for example, save $300 billion through. Oh God, I just hate seeing Medicaid work requirements. Insane. Save $300 billion through 2034, but do not take effect until 2028. In addition, while some of the Inflation Reduction Act energy credits are repealed at the end of 2025. Yeah, it sounds like they changed this around since this article was written, but it's so like, who knows how it's going to pan out, because this still has to obviously finish going through the House committees and through the House itself, and then back to the Senate. And if they make changes, then like back to that. It's like, it's a lot is subject to change here, but like it's going to obviously include tax cuts for the rich and massive non-defense spending cuts. So it could be around what this is predicting. It could be a little bit better, or it could be much, much worse. In the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, state matching fund requirements do not start until 2028. As a result of this mismatch and the sheer size of the bill's deficit increases, the House bill would add to the deficit in every single year, with the possible exception of 2025, even after the temporary provisions expire, but the largest deficit increase will take place early in the budget window. This additional near-term borrowing could stroke inflation and push up interest rates, and may continue in the future if policymakers extending expiring provisions and perhaps cancel some of the offsets. Yeah, this is terrible. This is going to be terrible. There's reports saying this is going to be the biggest wealth transfer from the poor and middle class to the wealthy, and it's not going to be good. Look at how much you are sacrificing as an average middle class American, lower class American, and compared to what you're getting. Like, it's insane. And obviously, we just like, they don't care. And what we just read, they don't care about the debt and the deficit. They care about making money for themselves and their rich friends and feeding the military industrial complex. Like, it's insane. Like, I can't believe this is what the conversation has come. Like, how much do we cut from healthcare? How much do we cut from food assistance? Like, I'd be less, I mean, I'd still be very critical, but I'd be less critical if this was like, paired with cuts to defense spending, border spending. Then I'd at least know you're principled in your stance, but you're not, because Republicans just aren't principled. They just aren't. Yeah, that's all I have for this one. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next one. If you made it to this point in the video, I just want to give a special thank you. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button down below, and if you really enjoyed it, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button while you're down there. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I will try to reply to any and all comments that I can. Until next time, watch that video on screen.